Hi everyone, this is Glenda Ganzon and welcome to my Human Anatomy and Physiology class. And for today's video, I'm going to discuss the anatomy and physiology of the digestive system. The food you eat takes an incredible journey through your body, from top or from your mouth down to the bottom or your anus. Along the way, the beneficial part of your food are absorbed, giving you energy and nutrients. And your digestive system is uniquely constructed to do its job of turning your food into nutrients and energy you need to survive. And when it's done, it handily packages your solid waste or stool for disposal when you have a bowel movement. The main organs that make up the digestive system are the mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, and anus. Helping them along the way are the pancreas, gallbladder, and liver. I'll be discussing more of this, but first of all, I would like to introduce what are the function, or I would like to discuss what are the function of the digestive system. So here are the functions of the digestive system. First, it is for ingestion. Food must be placed into the mouth before it can be acted on, and this is an active voluntary process called ingestion. The second one is the propulsion. If food are to be processed by more than one digestive organ, they must be propelled from one organ to the next. Swallowing is one example of food movement that depends largely on the propulsive process, and it is called peristalsis, or this is an involuntary alternating waves of the contraction and relaxation of the muscles in the organ wall. The third function of the digestive system is for food breakdown or mechanical digestion. Mechanical digestion prepares food for further degradation by enzymes by physically fragmenting the foods into the smaller pieces, and examples of mechanical digestion are mixing of food in the mouth by the tongue, churning of food in the stomach, and segmentation in the small intestine. The fourth function of the digestive system is for food breakdown and chemical digestion. The sequence of steps in which the large food molecules are broken down into their building blocks by enzymes is called chemical digestion. Another function, or the fifth function of the digestive system, is for absorption. Transport of digested end products from the lumen of the GI tract or gastrointestinal tract to the blood or lymph is absorption, and for absorption to happen, the digested foods must first enter the mucosal cells by active or passive transport processes. And the last function of the digestive system is for defecation. Defecation is the elimination of the indigestible residues from the gastrointestinal tract via the anus in the form of feces. So those are all the functions of the digestive system. Now let's move on to the anatomy of the digestive system. The organs of the digestive system can be separated into two main groups, and those forming the alimentary canal and the accessory digestive organs. So the organs of the alimentary canal can also be called as the gastrointestinal tract, and it is a continuous hollow muscular tube that winds through the ventral body cavity and is open at both ends. Its organs include the following. First is the mouth. Food enters the digestive tract through the mouth or oral cavity and a mucous membrane lined cavity. The lips or labia protect the anterior opening. The cheeks also form its lateral walls. The hard palate forms its interior roof, and the soft palate forms its posterior roof. The ovula is a fleshly finger-like projection of the soft palate, which extends inferiorly from the posterior edge of the soft palate. The space between the lips and the cheeks externally and teeth and gums internally is the vestibule. The area contained by the teeth is the oral cavity proper. The muscular tongue occupies the floor of the mouth and has several bony attachments. Two of these are the hyoid bone and the styloid processes of the skull. The lingual frenulum is a fold mucous membrane that secures the tongue to the floor of the mouth and limits its posterior movements. At the posterior end of the oral cavity are paired masses of lymphatic tissue, which is the palatine tonsils. And the last one is the lingual tonsils, which covers the base of the tongue just beyond. From the mouth, food passes posteriorly into the oropharynx and laryngopharynx. The oropharynx is posterior to the oral cavity, and the laryngopharynx is continuous with the esophagus below, both of which are common passageways for food, fluids, and air. So the esophagus, or what we call as the gullet, runs from the pharynx through the diaphragm to the stomach. About 25 centimeter or 10 inches long, and it is essentially a passageway that conducts food by peristalsis to the stomach. The walls of the alimentary canal organs from the esophagus to the large intestine are made up of the same four basic tissue layers or tonics. And the mucus is the innermost layer, that is a moist membrane that lines the cavity or lumen of the organ, and it consists primarily of a surface epithelium plus a small amount of connective tissue, which is lamina propria, and a scanty smooth muscle layer. The submucosa is found just beneath the mucosa, and it is a soft connective tissue layer containing blood vessels, nerve endings, lymph nodules, and lymphatic vessels. And the muscularis externa is a muscle layer typically made up of an inner circular layer and an outer longitudinal layer of smooth muscle cells. The serosa is the outermost layer of the wall that consists of a single layer of flat serous fluid producing cells, which is the visceral peritoneum. And lastly, the alimentary canal wall contains two important intrinsic nerve plexuses, which are the submucosal nerve plexus and the myenteric nerve plexus, and both of which are network of nerve fibers that are actually part of the autonomic nervous system and help regulate the mobility and secretory activity of the gastrointestinal tract organs. Now let's move on to the next organ of the digestive system, which is the stomach. The C-shaped stomach is located on the left side of the abdominal cavity, nearly hidden by the liver and the diaphragm. The stomach acts as temporary storage tank for food as well as the site for food breakdown. The cardiac region surrounds the cardioesophageal sphincter through which the food enters the stomach from the esophagus. And the fundus is the expanded part of the stomach lateral to the cardiac region. The body is the mid-portion, and as it narrows inferiorly, it becomes the pyloric antrum, and then the funnel-shaped pylorus. So the pylorus is the terminal part of the stomach, and it is continuous with the small intestine through the pyloric sphincter, or what we call as the valve. The stomach varies from 15 to 25 centimeter in length, but its diameter and volume depend on how much food it contains when it is full. And it can hold about 4 liters or 1 gallon of food, but when it is empty, it collapses inward on itself. The mucosa of the stomach is thrown into large folds called the rugae when it is empty. And the convex lateral surface of the stomach is the greater curvature. The convex medial surface is the lesser curvature. The lesser omentum, a double layer of peritoneum, extends from the liver to the greater greater curvature. So the greater omentum, which is another extension of the peritoneum, drapes downward and covers the abdominal organ like a lacy apron before attaching to the posterior body wall, and is riddled with fat, which helps to insulate cushion and protect the abdominal organs. The mucosa of the stomach is a simple columnar epithelium composed entirely of mucous cells that produce a protective layer of bicarbonate-rich alkaline mucus that clings to the stomach mucosa and protects the stomach wall from being damaged by acid and digested by enzymes. This otherwise smooth lining is dotted with millions of deep gastric pits, which lead into gastric glands that secrete the solution called gastric juice. Some stomach cells produce intrinsic factor, which is a substance needed for the absorption of vitamin B12 from the small intestine. The chief cells produce protein digesting enzyme, mostly pepsinogens, and the parietal cells produce corrosive hydrochloric acid, which makes stomach contents acidic and activates the enzymes. The enteroendocrine cells produce local hormones such as gastrin that are important to the digestive activities of the stomach, and after food has been processed, it resembles heavy cream and is called chyme. Next to the stomach is the small intestine, which is a muscular tube extending from the pyloric sphincter to the large intestine. It is the longest section of the alimentary tube with an average length of 2.5 to 7 meters, which is 8 to 20 feet in a living person. The small intestine has three subdivisions. First is the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum, which contribute 5%, nearly 40%, and almost 60% of the small intestine respectively. The ileum meets the large intestine at the ileocecal valve, which joins the large and small intestine. The main pancreatic and bile ducts join at the duodenum to form the flask-like hepatopancreatic ampulla, literally the liver pancreatic enlargement. From there, the bile and the pancreatic juice travel through the duodenal papilla and enter the duodenum together. Microvilli are tiny projections of the plasma membrane of the mucosa cells that give the cell surface a fuzzy appearance, sometimes referred to as the brush border. The plasma membranes bear enzymes, brush border enzymes, that complete the digestion of the proteins and carbohydrates in the small intestine. Villi are finger-like projections of the mucosa that give it a velvety appearance and feel much like soft nap of a towel. With each villus is a rich capillary bed and a modified lymphatic capillary, which is called the lacteal. Circular folds, also called plicae circularis, are deep folds of both mucosa and submucosa layers, and they do not disappear when food fills the small intestine. In contrast, local collection of lymphatic tissue found in the submucosa increase in number toward the end of the small intestine. Now let's move on to the next, which is the large intestine, and this is much larger in diameter than the small intestine but shorter in length, about 1.5 meter or 5 feet long, and it extends from the ileocecal valve to the anus. Its major functions are to dry out indigestible food residue by absorbing water and to eliminate these residues from the body as feces. It also frames the small intestines on three sides and has the following subdivisions: the cecum, appendix, colon, rectum, and anal canal. The sac-like cecum is the first part of the large intestine. Hanging from the cecum is a worm-like appendix, which is a potential trouble spot because it is an ideal location for bacteria to accumulate and multiply. The ascending colon travels up the right side of the abdominal cavity and makes a turn, the right colic or hepatic flexure, to travel across the abdominal cavity. The ascending colon, on the other hand, makes a turn and continues to the transverse colon as it travels across the abdominal cavity, and then turns again at the left colic or splenic flexure and continues down the left side of the descending colon. And the intestine then enters the pelvis where it becomes the S-shaped sigmoid colon. The anal canal ends at the anus, which opens to the exterior, and the anal canal has an external voluntary sphincter and the external anal sphincter composed of skeletal muscle, and the internal involuntary sphincter is formed by smooth muscles.